a gameologist. If you desire to be a man who is street savvy, charismatic, front sight focused, and an apex leader, then you must acquire the functionality of both sides of your mind. And if this is you, then stay tuned, because you're in the right spot. Checkmate. Welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Gameology. I'm your host, Neo K. Marcellus. At the beginning of this video, I stated, for one to be a gameologist, they need to have functionality of both sides of their mind. Now try this on for size. An Oxford educated and psychologist by the name of Ian McGilchrist pretty much said the same thing in his book, The Divided Brain and the Making of the Western World. He said, one particular mode has come to dominate society so badly that we hardly notice its pervasiveness. Here on this channel, I advocate the need to understand a person's vantage point, their experience. So when I look at this psychologist and his thousands and thousands of hours of counseling individuals, the credibility of him speaking on a certain subject holds major weight with me. Now, you might be thinking, what is this particular mode he's speaking of? Good question. When it comes to understanding reality, the measuring stick, or one of the measuring sticks to utilize, is the concept of duality. In order for there to be a up, there must be a down. If you have left, there must be a right, etc., etc. So your mind is broken down into the same concept as well. You have a way of thinking which is externally, and you have a way of thinking which is internally. Refer to the left and right side of your mind, so to speak. Here on this channel, I use the concept of chess to shed light on the concept of game, because both share the same principles and concepts. For instance, in chess, you must play both sides of the board. There's a lighter shade and there's a darker shade. But also, in utilizing methods in order to accomplish your outcome, which is to put the king, your opponent's king, in check, you utilize tactics and you utilize strategies. When it comes to the concept of your mind, strategies represents the right side, which is your internal thinking, and tactics represents the left side, which is your external thinking. So this particular psychologist was speaking on this one-sided quagmire that society has gotten itself into. He was referring to the left side, the external way of thinking, the tactical way of thinking. And tactical, when it comes to understanding the concept, means short term. It means situational. Whereas internal thinking refers to as strategy, long term, the ability to look out, not just at the point of your nose, but past your nose into months, years, even decades. That's the concept of strategy. Oh yeah, that is deep. But peep this out. To throw more fuel on the fire as for the legitimacy of using chess to enhance both sides of your brain, During the Second World War, British and American intelligence agencies recruited chess players to utilize to decode and decipher enemy communications. Nevertheless, let me paint this picture of how both sides of our brain operates. External thinking can be equated to sequential steps, whereby one step is utilized to move you to the steps that follows it. Once you decided or come to a conclusion based upon what you are putting under the microscope, so to speak, by using external thinking, the soundness of that conclusion is proven by the soundness of the steps that got you there. In this diagram, it is shown, external thinking is shown moving from letter A to letter B, etc. This the concept of having a sequential way of thinking, which is external thinking. Whereas internal thinking reaches its conclusion, let's say for instance the letter D, by the process of the letter G. And then having got there, can work itself all the way back to the letter A. This comes down to the concept of being creative. However, let me go into the problem that I stated at the beginning of this video. But before I do that, peep game. Our minds is a pattern making system. Our minds create patterns out of the data of the environment, and then prompts and utilize those patterns in order to maneuver around the chessboard of life. Point of clarity. When it comes to mental functions and the process of thinking, regardless if it's left or right side, this is totally two different processes. But that's a whole nother show right there. Going back to the concept of our minds is pattern making machines. In order to consistently bring about patterns and keep these patterns up to date so they can be better utilized, there needs to be a mechanism so these patterns can constantly be reconstructed. And this particular mechanism is the benefit of using both sides of your mind. The concept of gameology and the concept of game reaches all the way back to the streets and the black struggle, because that's the essence, that's the genesis of where game came from. A gameologist utilizes both sides of their brain because the concept of game deals with creativity within itself. For example, the music phenomenon known as hip hop was produced by gameologists. Ice-T, a grandmaster of the art of game himself, also a hip hop icon, said in his book that when early hip hop artists used to hang around street hustlers and gameologists at that time, these street hustlers always had witty comments and rhymes, and this phenomenon of rhyming goes all the way back past Reconstruction. There's a very old riddle rhyme referred to as the signifying monkey. This signifying monkey was a rhyme implying how the monkey outwitted the lion. And so this concept of rhyming and using art and verbalizing your thoughts goes all the way back and gets its root from early gameologists utilizing this to keep the mind sharp. That being said, As for the cautionary tone taken by that psychologist I mentioned earlier in this video, he was referring to the preponderance of your left side of your mind, the external form of thinking, to be exclusive of once an individual exclusively use this portion of their mind, then this produces a cliche type of mindset. Or in the street, we refer to an individual like this as a pollywannacracker type of individual, always regurgitating information. Because when a person exclusively leans towards the left side of their mind, they have a tendency to only have the ability to describe reality, not the ability to understand the definition of reality. There's a difference. The ability just to describe just gives you a surface level, but the ability to understand the definition gives you the properties and the attributes that's embedded into the whole content of what you're trying to understand in the first place. This concept of left and right brain and how your mind operates is a very vast concept. And on this show, The Chronicles of Gameology, I will be definitely having more shows dealing with this topic. In conclusion, a gameologist, their job is to play both sides of the chessboard in order to be a practitioner and eventually a master of the lighter shade and also the darker shade. But it's funny, many game goofy individuals has accused gameology in dabbling exclusively into the dark, the darker shade of the chessboard. But there's nothing wrong with the darkness, provided you controlling the switch. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode.